Okay, welcome to College Talk Tuesday. Andy Lockwood and...
Pearl Lockwood.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
We've met.
Once or twice.
Welcome to a special March Madness episode of College Talk Tuesday. I am wearing a bit of paraphernalia from recently departed University of Virginia, number 1 seed, ousted by a number 16 seed. I believe that was the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Retrievers.
Of course.
Yes.
Oh, right off the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. So this is not only March Madness for men's Division I basketball, and I guess women's also, but it's also a time of year when there's a lot of March Madness going on for kids who have applied to college in terms of their admissions results, in terms of the money they may have gotten gotten.
Another type of March Madness.
Yes, that was my segue. That's the whole point of what I was trying to say. Did you just connect the... Okay.
Just connecting it for everybody else.
So we're going to talk a little bit about getting deferred or getting waitlisted, how to avoid that, trying to make sense of some early results, because we've had, just like every year, we have surprises, both good and bad, in terms of kids getting into schools that we didn't think they had a real good shot at. We had a couple of Ivy League kids who were right in the running, but one I felt totally confident about, the other one less. And we've also, heard about kids who have gotten into schools that we didn't think they had a shot in, and on the opposite, we've heard about kids who did not get into schools that, if you look at their grades and scores versus other kids maybe from their high school with similar or better grades and scores, they may not have gotten in, or vice versa. So just trying to make some sense of it all. And then there's all kinds of stuff going on with financial aid awards being given out. Almost all have been given out, but not quite all. Not all. It's in the middle of March here. Today's the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we should talk about that. And I know you had sort of a surprise little thing that you teased me with right before we went on the air, because that's how we keep things fresh between us. So that's mystery topic.
Yeah.
So do you want to lead off with mystery topic?
We could lead off with
mystery. Do you want to wait?
Either way, we could jump right in before I forget.
She's so easygoing.
Well, so...
And if you're just joining us, say hi. Say hi in the comments section. Let me do a little... as you start talking, right when you start talking, I will interrupt you.
So at the risk of airing anybody's anything, because I guess this is not something that I knew was happening, and if it's happening absolutely everywhere around me, then, well, I'm the last one to the party. But I wonder if you could shed some light, and maybe, because I don't deal with this end of things, but a
lot of wind-up.
Learned, and I'm gathering from what I learned, that there will be a lot of people out there who will know exactly what I'm talking about and maybe participate. I was just kind of taken aback and surprised that this is an actual
What the hell are you talking about?
practice. But a local school in the area here, parents of seniors who have gotten teacher recommendation letters for their children from teachers, as required by applications, must, the must is in quotes, but the onus is on the parents feel and oblige, and buy presents for these teachers who have written letters of recommendation.
In advance or after?
After. Maybe before. I don't really know. But it's a practice that's uniform at least one local school. And the person was lamenting that she needed to do that. She hadn't yet done that, and she has younger children, and she's going to be screwed if she doesn't do that unspoken practice of, you got to get the presents for the teachers who've written letters of recommendation for your kid, even though that's part of their job, what they get paid a pension for, what they're supposed to be doing from whenever till whenever each day that they're paid for. Presents? What Do you know anything about this? Do all our clients do this? Is this news to me? Because maybe that's why Jack didn't get into other schools. Because I didn't buy anyone a present. What?
Well, first of all, I don't think he got in. He got in everywhere. He should have gotten in.
I'm only joking, but seriously.
Yeah, but we could have bribed his. Maybe we should have bribed his teachers for better grades. The recommendation's the least of it.
That there is an obligation on the part of parents, maybe who didn't necessarily come up with this idea, but are in a school where this is happening, feel that they must buy presents for their teachers who are writing letters of recommendation, which, oh yeah, that's part of their job description.
Well, let me ask you a few questions.
What?
Number one, which district is it?
I'm not saying.
It's definitely more than one district. Number two, what type of presents are we talking about? What's the cash value?
I'm not sure. I mean, I really need to explore this a little further.
Yeah, this is kind of like...
This is insane.
Well, it's not insane. It's kind of like how... how all these rules that
crazy.
Govern, what you're supposed to give to politicians. You're supposed to be,
I don't
certain
feel that
caps
these
on
are de minimis.
You think it could be like, you don't think it's like a Starbucks card? You think it's like a...
Well, Hamilton tickets, or maybe
Really?
Dear Evan Hansen tickets.
Really?
I don't know. I may be taking some artistic license right now.
I've never seen any email from our high school addressing this.
No.
Like, there should be an email saying something like, by the way, don't
do this.
Yeah.
That was my response
Yeah.
to this person when
Yeah.
I heard it. And this is not somebody who feels that she wants to do this either, but feels she must because she's in a school district where this is the
right.
unspoken practice.
Well, apparently it's spoken. Right.
And it was more on the laundry list of things I have to do. I have to do this. I got to get the presents for the teachers who wrote letters of recommendation. I said, what?
So first of all, I'm glad that you wanted to talk about this in the beginning, in case you forgot about this, because that clearly was in danger of slipping your mind. So look, I think I have a couple thoughts. Number one, it's gross, whatever, but that's the way things happen in some districts. So just deal with it. Number two, I think that for the most part, I think that a lot of admissions officers don't really put too much weight in letters of recommendation the way they used to, mostly because it's very unlikely to kids are unlikely to get a bad recommendation. I think they're all glowing or some degree of glowing, mostly because I think because I think that a lot of administration, people in the administration, a lot of teachers or whatever are like a little nervous about parents complaining about pointing the finger for not writing a great recommendation and all that. I don't know how much they count really in admissions. I think in some schools they count more. Some admissions officers, and we have a bunch who work for us, so I certainly want to ask them about this if they're aware of this practice. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of admissions officers at the more competitive schools have kind of trained themselves to read between the lines for recommendation letters. But yeah, I wish it didn't happen, and there should be some sort of, and I don't, as you probably know.
This is not in our school.
I know, but I'm just saying, but unlike, we're not that different from other districts. I mean, we have a competitive school district. We certainly are not like one of the top in the, in the state or in the country, but. I don't read most of those emails that go out. I was looking the other day, and there were like literally 6 that came. Mm-hmm. I mean, I counted because there were one was from middle school, and then there were the other 5 were from the high school, and some of it's about safety and gun stuff and whatever. I get that. That's probably why I looked at it. Mm-hmm. But I don't, to my knowledge, I've never seen any type of policy saying please don't feel the need to tip our teachers because that's an inherent conflict. I think that's kind of I don't like that.
Me either.
Yeah.
That was my reaction.
And I feel bad about our client feeling that she's going to be hurting her kids' chances if she doesn't do this.
Right.
So the next time you speak to Rachel, tell her, Marilyn,
no,
Allie. Okay. So yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Anyone watching this, either live or replay, let us know.
Do you know about this practice at your school?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Geez. All right. So David Friedman checked in. Hello, David. Okay, good. So if you're just joining us, say hi. Let us know in comments. All right. So let's talk about some other stuff. Let's talk about getting in and not getting in. So if you have a junior or a sophomore, one of the things you need to think about is when you're compiling your ultimate college list. it should be balanced. It shouldn't be too top heavy, and it shouldn't be too bottom heavy, and it should also be manageable. I don't think it's worth applying to 15 or 20 colleges. I think 10 or 12 is really a good number, provided that the list is balanced. But one of the things that happens a lot this time of year is that we hear about kids who thought they were going to get into a certain school and they didn't, or they got deferred. A lot of the time, not every time, but many times, that has to do with how much interest a school was demonstrated, meaning how interested a kid was. So I was talking to a client earlier today, and who always books fake names on the calendar. So I have a client-only calendar, and what in our practice, so does Pearl, clients put their name and their phone number, and then we call them at certain times. So he put in Rex today, as in Tillerson. I said, I was actually expecting more like Stormy Davis or something.
Funny.
But he admitted that was a bad move. But there's more people now. So there's the whole Donald Trump Jr. thing that has, he's scanning the New York Post for headlines. So yeah. Anyway, so we were talking about a school that his daughter, I would have thought would have been a slam dunk to get into. Of course, that was based on her academics and other schools that she had also heard back from favorably, but she got deferred to this school. I said, wait, did you guys visit that school? And which is Providence College. And he said, oh no, we actually never visited. I said, well, it's hard to kind of hang your head on one reason why you didn't get into a school. But if I were to point to one thing that I hear over and over again year after year, it's demonstrating interest. Now not every school cares about how much interest you demonstrate by visiting, by communicating with admissions, by showing up at local open houses and things like that. But some do, and you don't want to wing it. You want to do your best. No one can visit every college. That was another phone call I had with a client today about when are we going to visit schools. My son's playing a sport. It's very hard to get around everywhere. No one can visit every school, but schools that you're reasonably interested in. Bless you.
Excuse me.
That's awful. You're getting a call.
Sorry.
Is that the school? That's a teacher that's watching.
I know. I'll tell you exactly what this is. This is NYIT, because our sons took driver's ed. They're telling us that there's no school tomorrow, I'm guessing, because of the winter storm that's coming. That's my guess.
We get notices from New York Institute of
Because
Technology?
we're on their call, yes, because of driver's ed, yeah.
So glad I never gave my phone
But
number.
I recognize that number now, that we're heading into the fourth storm of the season.
Could he get like a driver's ed scholarship to that school now that he's been on campus?
One can only hope.
Yeah.
It's like lawsuits. Anyone can file them, There might be such a scholarship. Okay. I actually have an opposite end of the spectrum of what you were just talking about, but in terms
what do you
of
mean
unless you weren't
spectrum?
finished. Well, just in terms of making sure you have enough quote unquote touches to the school that you are very interested in, or at some point may come to wonder why you're not getting a positive response from that school. If you have left them kind of, remember, the school's interest is that the amount of students they say yes to, they want saying yes back to them, because that affects their yield, which affects their statistics in U.S. News and World Reports, which they care about. So in order to gauge their bets on, or hedge their bets on whether or not this applicant is likely to go there, if they say yes to that applicant, they need to see some indication of interest. And to that end, that's what Andy was just talking about, showing up, going to the local, this, that. You don't have to make yourself nuts, but you definitely, if this is a place you're interested, you got to demonstrate your interest. Now, I had a situation with a candidate who has not yet heard from a school that he's very, very that it's my first choice. He didn't apply early, but he applied to many schools.
Did he apply early to any other schools?
No.
Okay.
No, good question, but no. He may have applied early action and then been deferred to the pool of regular applicants. So he's definitely on the cusp. It's not yet time for him to hear. However, he hasn't gotten in. So I had given him a couple of suggestions about what else at this juncture he could illuminate the commission on admissions. Anything new that may have happened since the time of initial application that you could illuminate to the admissions committee perhaps could move the dial and get you that acceptance. And then, so we had that discussion. A couple weeks went by, and he's, I still haven't heard anything yet, and I'm really, I'm dying. Do you think should I call and blah, or go visit? And yeah, and I said, you don't want to annoy them either. There is a balance between really letting them know that you're their first choice, and really, giving them all the information to consider upon your candidacy, but you don't want to be a nudge. You don't want to be that, oh, you're that guy again, because that may tip you the other way very quickly. Like, you know what? No. So you got to find that balance. And
a lot of admissions offices will actually say, you can if you're deferred or if you're waitlisted,
right.
which I treat it the same thing. You tell us. You can give us one update, maybe, but don't slam us.
Correct.
So they'll say that, and every year there's all kinds of crazy stories about gifts and cookies and things being sent also, and little cutesy things, and that's just brown nosing type stuff that doesn't work.
Right.
But that being said, if you're trying to demonstrate to a school that you are that it is your first choice, whether you're deferred or whether you still haven't heard from them, there's nothing wrong with doing what Pearl said. I just want to let you know my second quarter was my best quarter ever.
Right.
Sending in my grades. Also, I received these awards. I was named blah 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 and this and that. And here's copies of that. Please add this to my file. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Exactly.
Done. So
That's
there's
correct.
really not occasion to break that up into 3 or 4 different communications. One should do it, but that's what they want to know. They want to know that you're the top. That college is the top choice.
Right, and that you're still demonstrating the amount of academic rigor that would be required at such a place. So, to that end, make sure for all those senior slackers, that fall semester of your senior year, it really does matter. It could matter more than your whole other high school record. We've seen it cut both ways. On the one hand, you could use it, as Andy was just saying, as a point of advocacy if you're trying to get in off a wait list or just get in regular decision. And the point is, if you've applied in October and now it's March, many months of happenings, are under your belt, and there is presumably information to share with an admissions committee. But most importantly is going to be your academic record and you continuing to demonstrate strength of college level material as you're closing up your high school career. We've also seen it cut the other way, where people have said, okay, I'm done. Now that my applications are off, they don't really look at the senior year, but they do. And we've seen guidance counselors get requests for mid-fall grades, not even when the semester is over. And then if their grades have been not so hot, we've unfortunately seen rejections come shortly after that.
Yeah, just to pick up on what Pro just said, a lot of times admissions officers will say we want to see that the kid is not only taking a challenging course load in senior year, but we want to see how they're doing. And we've got a guy this year who had a D on a class that he should not have gotten a D in, and I think that affected. He got into a school that did not think he was going to get in. Stunned his mom also. I got a text like, at what point do we tell them it's a mistake or we think they made a mistake? But he didn't. He also did not get into certain schools that he thought he was a slam dunk for. I don't think that was the consensus among his family and me. But it's sometimes it's a little bit of a reality check also. Yeah. And who knows what's going to happen? But you want to give yourselves the best options possible.
Exactly. You want in all cases you want to make sure there's not that one thing you can point to, because not every school, as we know by now, evaluates everything in the same way. Or maybe for one school it's your essay that did it one way or the other.
I actually think for this guy in particular, who I was just mentioning, that's the only logical explanation, because he applied to a very competitive business program, and his essay, to his credit, which he probably went through 5 or 6 drafts at least. I'm trying to block out some of it, but we worked a lot on his essay. It was purely a business lesson essay. So sometimes that can make the difference. I can't, I'm searching high and low for other reasons, why he got in, especially because there were other schools that he didn't get into.
Right. Who may just not have relied as heavily on the essay.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot of stuff that's in your control, there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control.
Right.
At the end of the day, you want to give it your all, and you don't want to have any regrets, you want to leave everything on the table. Another thing that we hear this time of year is from families who have been kind of either watching our webinars or they've been to some of our presentations in the past that weren't snowed out, and then we never heard from them, and then they pop up and they're like, hey, I was meaning to reach out to you before, but I never had a chance, or I never got around to it. Now my son got deferred, or he didn't get in anywhere, or we got this financial aid award, and it was awful. We can't afford to send him to something that you can do to help. And 9 times out of 10, I'm in a position of saying, at this point, I can't really help you. Right. And don't misconstrue what I'm saying as a commercial to reach out to us. Of course, if you want to, happy to try to see if we could help you. But it's really more of a commercial for just failing to take action. Don't do that. It's a commercial against that. Right. Don't fail to take action when you have the time.
And when we can do more for you. Well, that's
or do it yourself. I'm not. Right. It's not necessarily about us. But what I'm saying is, like what happens. What I was getting at. What happens so frequently is we get these types of calls, and what's underpinning these types of regrets is that parents wish they'd done everything they had the ability to do. If they could roll the clock back, they would have done so now. You don't want to look. So if you have someone who's a junior or a sophomore, you don't want to look ahead. You don't want to be in a position in a year from now when you look back and say, "Wow, did I do everything I could have possibly done to to help my kids succeed?" And you don't want that answer to be no. So
that's also true for the standardized exams. You don't want to wait on that too, because we've seen last year we had a handful of seniors who took the October ACT, and that was their Hail Mary, their last ditch effort, and they were counting on those scores to help them bring them over the edge at certain schools. And what happened at this particular testing site is the school lost all of the ACTs. And that was that. And they didn't count, and that unfortunately put those students who waited so long, and I'm sure they took other exams, but maybe that first test they didn't take till the end of junior year instead of the beginning of junior year.
Okay, so that ties into a little plug that we can make, because we are offering, locally here in our office, we're offering a free hybrid diagnostic. It's a combination of SAT and ACT. If you're interested, just private message me. I'll give you the link for that. It's really a plug for something for free.
Delays,
yeah.
Which test?
Right. Well, people will go down, I wrote this email yesterday, the day before, people will go down a road of picking one test, but it's usually arbitrarily. It's usually because their friends told you something about, they had a better time with the ACT or the SAT, or they heard that the ACT is easier, or that the SAT was easier, or they heard this, they heard that, but none of that really matters. What matters is how you do on, how your kid performs on the test. A lot of kids do about the same. That takes the pressure off for a portion of kids, but there's a fair amount, I don't know what the stats are. Our tutor Marissa seems to think it's higher than I actually do. There's a fair amount of kids who do better on one test versus the other. But the best way to figure out how well you're going to do on a specific test is by taking one of each. The next best thing is to do what we're offering, and I know we're not the only ones offering this, but it's a hybrid. Listen, Marissa's great. There's no one better than her, right? I don't care if we're the best.
Serious.
Yeah, I know. But it's a hybrid of a few sections of actual old ACTs and a few sections of old SATs. The whole thing about 3 hours, and then Marissa goes through it herself, and then she has a meeting with each client, makes a recommendation, and tells you about our offerings, which you're free to pass on or start with us on, either way. But what Pearl was saying, the bigger picture is. This is a conversation I had with a client that actually I like this one. So a client I had spoken to, I think we even met them in the office almost a full year ago, like last June, when his daughter was a sophomore about to be a junior. Now she's a junior about to be a senior. And he said, I don't know if you remember me. I didn't. But we had this conversation, and we just felt that she just wasn't ready at the time. And I was like, yeah, because I always tell people, I don't want to take your money if the kid's not going to take the advice, because our advice works. Like I was saying before, every year. This year's no exception. We have kids who get into schools like Yale and Stanford and whatever crazy schools, UVA, Michigan, Cornell, other Ivies, other less schools that are not quite as hard to get into. Plus everything community colleges and everything in between. But that advice, even though I know it's effective, doesn't work if a kid doesn't take it. So he took a pass at the time because we had that discussion, and now he's back. He said, I think that she is ready at this point, but I'm not really sure. And I said, and they were actually referred by two different, totally different people that don't know each other, which is kind of interesting. Like originally they were referred by Jim and Erica Long, who have a test prep company out in Huntington, and then just most recently they were out with other clients of ours, Vinny. And the rest, I think, and the other Cavallone people, and because their daughters are friends with each other, and they mentioned, they're very nice, and mentioned that they were working with us. And what I said to him was, this is what I would tell your daughter, because we had the same thing with our older son. Think of this process as like a train. So a train comes into your local train station, Penn Station, or whatever, at a certain time, and it leaves at a certain time. And it doesn't have any bearing. What doesn't have any bearing on when it arrives or when it leaves is how ready you are for it. It's going to happen. So either you're on the train or you're not on the train. And if you're not quite ready to think about the college process, that doesn't matter. That's not really relevant. And this is something that I've heard you say a lot to our kids, and maybe even on our program and other times. But what Pearl says a lot is, when your friends go off to college that are your age, and the ones that did the work are going to schools that are that you're envious of, and you are not going to those colleges because you eliminated those schools from contention because of your choices in 11th grade or 10th grade or 9th grade, you're probably going to look back and feel like you wish you had done things differently. And that's why I said a couple minutes ago, this process, a lot of this is about not just for kids, but for parents, fast forwarding a year from now and looking back and saying, well, I gave it everything I reasonably could. I did what's best. I did everything in my power.
Absolutely. Along those lines, I was speaking with a friend who has a current senior in high school, and as many of you know, we have a current freshman in college. So I said, it's amazing what your perspective is going to be in a year from now. Right now everyone is sort of finding out and still finding out, and then self-identifying with the school that they've picked, and cloaking themselves with all of the garb from that school, and claiming their identity.
Does not go here.
Claiming their new identity for their college and whatever. And I said, that's all great, and that's fabulous. First of all, the reality of the choices that the 12th graders, that the kids are now finding out, it's like a whole other process. You're psyched, so the whole this abstract list of schools that's on paper have now to some extent become reality. And now the reality of choosing as between the schools you have been accepted to needs to come into play, because these are no longer abstract names on paper. What I mean by that is, okay, let's say you got into Binghamton, but you also got into Tulane. Now, obviously, we can say right off the bat that maybe you even got some rewards at Tulane that make the price right. But another very big deal thing that you're going to have to also consider is travel. Okay, these are no longer names on paper. This is, if you're going to Tulane, you're going to be getting an airplane and flying, and then transportation with all your big stuff and your small stuff to your dorm and whatever. And that's going to be one. And are you going to come home for Columbus Day and Veterans Day and Thanksgiving, and how many flights are you?
Pesach,
Rosh Hashanah, whatever. As compared to, if you're a few hour drive away, which also offers you the opportunity to take a bus or a train, and and it's a drive, and then the reality of coming home all those times, is more plausible. My point is, I'm not saying one's a bad choice, but that is something that your family must consider, because that will become part of your reality in a year from now. And that's, I think, a lot of the state that people are in now. Like, okay, now this is becoming a reality. This is the school we're going.
It's more tangible. It's not always
exactly.
that tangible until you actually do it. But a lot of kids, they find that
it's not a right choice.
It's they don't like being away.
Yeah.
Sometimes they come home a few days after they arrive there,
right.
which it's not necessarily the healthiest thing. But coming home from college over weekends, very busy travel days, not such a pleasant thing sometimes.
No.
Yeah. Why didn't you force Jack to get on a train the other day?
I'm a pushover.
No, you thought it was going to be less aggravating.
Yes.
Which I'm not so sure.
I'm conflict averse. He's pretty aggravating.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So look who's joined. Loyal viewer Barbara Mitchell from Upper Chilly New England. I don't know if they're going to get hit with more snow.
The storm
hello to Louisa and hello to Joanne. Good to see you guys. All right, so any other, I don't know, we should be talking, I guess, a little bit more about the last few financial aid offers are trickling in. We are always of the opinion that you want to wait till you have all of your arrows in the quiver before you start negotiating with other schools. So I just wrote a letter for a client today whose daughter had gotten into 5 or 6 colleges, but 3 of the offers were sort of competitive. We just got the last offer, schools that compete with each other. So I wrote the letter today. He's going to send it off, and we're going to see what happens. But the letter was, listen, we appreciate the offer, thank you very much, but financial reality is being what they and he's a blue collar guy. He's out east on Long Island. Income is very modest, but expenses are not modest, and college costs, of course, are a far cry from modest. So we're making a couple of those. Those are the arguments. We've got these other offers. Anything you can do, type of thing. So I like to wait. I don't like to jump the gun. We've heard back from some other families who have jumped the gun a little bit, and I've felt that that's not advisable. So I guess the other argument is, well, what if the school runs out of money or something? I'm like, they're not running out of money. They have millions and billions in endowments, and they're going through the same struggles that your kids are going through. They have to hit their enrollment targets by May 1st, which is big milestones when the housing deposits are due for most colleges. So they're playing let's make a deal in March and most of April, frankly.
Right, and
sometimes even after. I
think a lot of what also causes some artificial panic at this time is that many schools have told their candidates whether they've been accepted or not at this point, and or have rendered award letters. But a lot of times that's based on how and when the applicant applied. If an applicant applied to a school early action or applied to a school that is a rolling admissions school, then they are going to hear much earlier. But then when other kids start to hear that this one's hearing and this one's hearing and this one's hearing and that one's hearing without getting kind of all the information, it may just be because you're on the fence at that school and they're not ready to make a choice. But I'm getting emails at this point from a lot of our clients like, we've heard from a lot, but we haven't heard from everywhere. Should I do something? What's wrong? You sure you sent everything? And we're only March 20th. We're close, but it's not April 15th yet. And that is when schools have, in print, reserved the right to tell you when they're going to tell you whether you've been admitted and what your financial aid award is. And it feels uncomfortable because you have heard from all these other places, so it feels like something's amiss. But you just
they know that too. I mean, it's not coincidence that they're giving you basically 2 weeks to decide.
Correct.
They all they like you being under that pressure too.
Correct. But you just need to. It is a process, and I agree with you. It was not in the best interest, depending on what those other schools, what they were still waiting to hear from. But it is not in a candidate's best interest. You've come so far. Don't blow it by not waiting for all of your potential bargaining chips to come in. So be patient. You're almost there. Got a couple more weeks, and there's going to be a lot of activity between now and May 1st. Everybody is going to hear from everywhere, one way or the other. You'll have your award letters in from the places you've been accepted to, and then you, like everyone else, will have till May 1st to decide which school and put in a housing deposit. A lot will happen in the next 6 weeks. It's true. Just get on your surfboard and hang tight.
Sometimes the negotiations drag on after May 1st.
They do, but that is
in our client's favor. So
correct.
Yes,
but
don't freak out.
And more importantly, don't blow any housing deposit deadline because you have an ongoing appeal underway. One thing has nothing to do with the other. You do, because if you don't get that housing deposit in, then you've blown your chance of your spot there.
Yeah. So just to pick up on that. So and then we'll go. This last point here because we're already over a little bit on time. Some schools' housing is more scarce than others. If that's the situation, if you're committed for the most part to sending your kid either way,
Just
come
hoping
hell or
for
high
something
water,
better,
I would get that. I would get that housing deposit in even before the deadline, which is what Pearl was talking about.
Yes.
Yes, in the abstract, there may be a little bit of a negation of your leverage, chipping away at it. No, there might be, but I wouldn't worry about it. I think if it's more important to have a good housing that's in the middle of campus or something, or a good dorm, as opposed to the crappy dorm that's far away or something, that can make or break how you feel about freshman year also. So that I would go even further than what Pearl said. I would get the housing deposit in if there's some scarcity involved. If that's not the case, because that's not true at every college, particularly the smaller ones, then I would wait.
And I'll go one step further in terms of really how much are you giving up in terms of leverage. In the course, in comparison, the housing deposit, let's say it's about $5,000 or $1,000.
The deposit? No, it's like $500.
Okay, so right, I'm saying, so the deposit at being about $500 compared to the entire cost of tuition for 1 year, let's call it on average, because some are more, some are less, $50,000. I don't think that's giving up a whole lot of leverage, in the scheme of that financial comparison.
Well, it's not that you're, ethically, in theory, you're not supposed to do this, but it's pretty common for people to walk away from their housing deposits.
Right.
Most of them are non-refundable, not all of them. So if you put a deposit in, it's not necessarily a clear-cut indication that you're just going to roll over and take whatever offer they give you.
Right.
So, anyways, I'm glad you brought that point up.
Thanks.
Very salient. Yes. Okay. Anything else? Any other words of wit and wisdom before we let people get back to their Tuesdays?
No, make sure you get enough milk before the storm.
Milk? Just milk?
I don't know.
Not water. Okay, so thanks for joining us on College Talk Tuesday. We do this every Tuesday at 12. We've now just started to also put these and other bits of content on our new podcast called The College Planning Edge. Yes, which is on our website also. So you may be listening to this on via podcast. Who might be in your ears right now, or not, who knows. But thanks for watching. This is every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, and it's just kind of a magazine-ish format. Here's what you should be doing now, some of the hot stuff that needs to happen, but we also have a bunch of other stuff happening, free workshops, free ACT, SAT diagnostics, and whatever. Just go to our website, and you will be able to see all that stuff, LockwoodCollegePrep.com, or just message me. That might be easier if you have something specific you want to know. I check the messages periodically, almost daily. All right, done.
Done.
All right, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you soon.